The first time I saw her, I almost forgot why I was there. The chain was half off the sprocket, grease already on my hands, and she was standing by the porch, one sandal hooked behind the other, as if she hadn't quite decided whether to stay or leave. Her name was Marian, though she said it like it didn't matter much anymore. Mid-40s, maybe, but age didn't seem to cling to her the way it did with most people. She carried herself with a kind of quiet steadiness, the kind that makes you straighten your back without meaning to. Her younger sister had been the one who asked me to fix the old Honda parked out front, said she'd owe me one. I didn't expect anyone else to be home. But when I bent down to start, I felt eyes on me, calm, steady, curious. And then she spoke. Does it always take this long to start? Her tone wasn't impatient. It was soft, almost teasing, like she wanted to see what kind of person I was before deciding if I was worth another question. I wiped my hands on a rag. Depends who's been writing it. A small smile, more in her eyes than her mouth. That would be my sister. So, probably too rough. There was a pause. The kind that stretches but doesn't break. A bird landed on the railing. The air smelled like cut grass and metal. I felt the sun heat the back of my neck, but it wasn't the reason I suddenly felt flushed. She crouched down beside me, close enough that her shoulder brushed mine as she looked at the bike. Is it bad? She asked. Not really. Just neglected. Something flickered in her expression. Barely there, but enough to make me look twice. Story of my life, she said quietly. It hung there between us, half a joke, half not. I didn't answer. Couldn't really. I just reached for the wrench again, pretending I hadn't noticed the slight tremor in her hand when she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Minutes passed like that. I worked, she stayed. The air felt too still, like the world had pressed pause. I could feel her eyes tracing the small movements, my hands, my jaw, the sweat gathering near my temple. You're good with your hands, she said eventually. It wasn't what she meant. I heard it in the way her voice caught on the last word. I didn't trust myself to look up right away. Comes with practice, I said finally. When I did glance at her, she was already watching me, not smiling, just studying. Like she was remembering something or comparing me to someone who wasn't there anymore. Marian, I said, testing her name. She blinked. You remembered. Hard to forget. For a moment, neither of us moved. The sound of cicadas rose around us, loud enough to hide the quiet things neither of us said. I felt the air shift, something pulling tight, fragile, real. Her hand brushed mine again, accidentally this time. I think. It wasn't a long touch. Just long enough for her to realize she hadn't pulled away. Then, the screen door creaked open behind us. Marian, a voice called. Her sister. She stood up too fast, smoothing her skirt like she'd been caught doing something wrong. You're almost done, right? She asked, eyes somewhere near my shoulder now. Almost, I said. But the truth was, I hadn't even touched the chain again. And when she turned to go, I swear, she hesitated, just for a breath, like she wanted to say something she shouldn't. Then the door closed. And I was left there, staring at the bike, my hands still shaking from a touch that barely happened. She came out again the next afternoon. Said she was just checking if it ran. It didn't, not yet, but I knew that wasn't why she came. Marian carried a mug of coffee she barely drank. Her hair was tied up, but a few strands had slipped loose, curling near her neck. She looked tired in a way that didn't come from lack of sleep. More like she'd been holding herself together for too long. I crouched by the bike again, trying not to look up too much. The air between us felt careful, like something that could break if I moved the wrong way. You do this for a living? She asked. Not really. I just like fixing things. She smiled, not big, but enough to show the faint line near her mouth. That's rare. Most people like replacing them. She said it casually, but her eyes drifted somewhere far off, and I knew she wasn't talking about bikes anymore. Her husband had left a few years ago. I'd heard it from the sister, in that offhand tone people use when pretending something doesn't matter. I didn't ask questions, but I saw the way Marian's fingers tapped the mug when the silence stretched too long. Guess I'm just used to old things, I said. Her lips parted like she was going to say something, then didn't. Instead, she stepped closer to look at the bike's rear light. The scent of her perfume, faint floral, almost gone, brushed over me. You missed a spot, she murmured, pointing to the side mirror. Her hand came to rest on my shoulder as she leaned over. Not firm. Just there. Warm through the fabric. My pulse jumped before I could hide it. She must have felt it, because she hesitated, but didn't pull away. You're shaking, she said quietly. Yeah, I managed. Hot out. It's not that hot. A pause. Long enough for both of us to hear everything we weren't saying. Then she laughed, soft, uneasy. You're what, 22? 24. She nodded, more to herself than to me. Still too young. Too young for what? Another pause. She exhaled, looked at me finally, and the look wasn't playful this time. It was almost sad. For this kind of trouble, she said. I didn't know what to do with that. My hands went back to the wrench, but my focus didn't. Every word she said echoed somewhere under my ribs. When she crouched again to help, our knees almost touched. The air felt thick, like the world had leaned in to listen. You don't have to stay, I said. I know. She didn't move. I turned the key. The engine sputtered, coughed, then roared to life. Her face lit up, and for the first time I saw her smile. Not polite, not practiced. Real. She reached out without thinking, fingers brushing mine in a quick, grateful squeeze. It should have been nothing. It wasn't. The sound of the motor filled the space, but all I could hear was her breath catching just slightly, like she hadn't expected to feel it either. When she finally let go, neither of us looked away. And in that brief, suspended moment, I knew we were both already too close to pretend it was just about the bike anymore. By the third day, I told myself I was only coming back to fine-tune the carburetor. But when I saw Marian through the kitchen window, sleeves rolled up, hair pinned loosely, sunlight glinting off the sink, I knew I was lying to myself. She looked up just as I reached the porch. A smile ghosted across her lips. You again, she said. Bike's not done yet, I said, trying for light. She wiped her hands on a towel, leaned against the doorframe. You said that yesterday. Yeah, well, some things take more time. That line hung there too long. I looked away first. The house was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that makes you notice small sounds. Her bracelet sliding against her wrist, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the uneven rhythm of both our breathing. She poured 2 glasses of water without asking, handed me one. Our fingers touched, again accidentally, again not really. Careful, she murmured. I might start thinking you come here for the company. I took a sip before answering. Maybe I do. Something flickered behind her eyes, surprise, maybe, or recognition. She looked down, then laughed softly. You shouldn't say things like that. Why not? Because, her voice faltered, searching. Because people talk. Who? She didn't answer, just turned, walked toward the garage. Her pace was steady, but her shoulders were tense. I followed, heart pounding harder than it should have. Inside, the air was cooler, smelling of oil and metal, and her perfume faintly woven through. She stood close enough that the edge of her shirt brushed my arm. Your sister mentioned she's going away for the weekend, I said. She did. Yeah. Marian didn't move for a long moment. Then she sighed. You shouldn't have told me that. I thought you'd want to know. I do. She smiled tightly. That's the problem. Her hand was on the bike's seat now, fingers tracing idle circles in the dust. I couldn't stop watching. You ever wish things were simpler? I asked, voice low. Every day, she whispered. And just like that, the space between us vanished. Her head turned toward me. I felt her breath, warm and unsteady, brushing my cheek. My pulse matched hers. I could hear it, fast, uneven. Her eyes dropped to my mouth for the briefest second. Then a vibration. The sound of her phone, buzzing sharp in the silence. She froze, drew in a quick breath, fumbled it out of her pocket. The screen lit her face, her sister's name. Neither of us spoke. She hit ignore. Should you? No, she cut in, voice trembling slightly. She can wait. We stood there, inches apart, every nerve aware of every breath. If I'd moved even a little, it would have happened. The thing we were both pretending we didn't want. But she stepped back instead. Slowly. Carefully. Go home, she said softly. Please. I nodded, throat dry. As I walked out, the air between us still felt electric, stretched thin, humming. When I glanced back, she was still there, one hand gripping the edge of the workbench like it was the only thing keeping her upright. And for the first time, I realized it wasn't the bike that needed fixing anymore. It was everything else. Rain came without warning that evening. Heavy, drumming on the tin roof of the garage like it was trying to break through. I was halfway home when my phone buzzed. Marian, you left your wrench here. I should have ignored it. I didn't. By the time I got back, the rain had turned the driveway into a river. The garage door was half open, warm light spilling out. She stood just inside, barefoot, hair damp, holding the wrench like it was proof of something. You could have called tomorrow, I said. I didn't want to wait. She stepped aside, let me in. The smell of rain mixed with the faint scent of her shampoo, lavender and something warmer underneath. Her shirt clung slightly at the collar, and I could see she'd been pacing. I set the wrench down on the workbench. You all right? No, she said. I don't think I am. Her voice cracked on the last word. Not enough to seem weak, just enough to sound real. She pressed her palms to her face, then dropped them, looking at me like she'd already crossed a line in her head. I can't keep pretending this isn't. She stopped herself. Isn't what? I asked, barely above a whisper. She stepped closer. The rain outside got louder. This, she said. Whatever this is between us. You know it's wrong. Wrong. Don't make me say it. I need to hear it. Her breath hitched. I'm too old for you. You're too young. People will talk. My sister. Your sister doesn't matter. Yes, she does, she snapped, then immediately softened. You think I don't see how she looks at you? That caught me off guard. What? She flirts with you. She's half my age. She could have you without a second thought. But I'm here, I said. With you. The silence after that felt like something alive, waiting to see what we'd do. She shook her head, eyes glistening, then laughed quietly, a sound that wasn't happy at all. You don't know what you're doing. Maybe not, I said. But I know what I want. And then I moved, not forward, not quite. Just close enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath mixing with mine. Her hand came up, almost touching my face, then stopped. Trembling fingers hovered an inch from my skin. Don't, she whispered. I didn't move. Her hand found my chest instead, resting there like she needed to feel my heartbeat to remember she was still in control. It wasn't working for either of us. Rain hammered harder. The lights flickered. Her breath shuddered out. Say something, she whispered. I can't, I said. If I do, it's over. Her eyes lifted to mine, steady now. Then maybe it should be. The words barely left her mouth before the power cut, darkness swallowing us whole. And in the thick silence that followed, I felt her hand tighten against me. We both knew what was about to happen next. The power came back an hour later, but the silence stayed. We didn't speak. The rain slowed to a whisper, and I could hear her breathing across the small space, uneven, shallow, like she was holding something down. She'd stepped away, standing by the window now, arms folded tight. The air between us still hummed from everything that almost happened. Then she said quietly, My sister knows. I froze. She heard us yesterday, Marian went on. When you said she was going away for the weekend. My stomach tightened. What did she say? She asked if I liked you. A humorless smile flickered across her face. I told her I didn't. I didn't answer right away. The words stung, but her voice didn't match them. It trembled on the edges. Why lie? I asked. Because it's easier, she said. Because if she thinks I don't, maybe she won't see how much I do. That last part slipped out like she hadn't meant to say it. Her eyes widened slightly, but she didn't take it back. The world narrowed to the sound of water dripping from the roof. You do? I asked, barely breathing. She closed her eyes. Don't make me say it again. I need to hear it. Her hands trembled at her sides. You think this is some story that ends well? I can't be that woman, and you can't be that boy who ruins himself trying to love her. I'm not a boy, I said, stepping closer. She laughed once, soft, pained. Then stopped looking at me like one. I stopped in front of her, close enough that our reflections merged in the dark glass. She looked at me like she wanted to stay angry, but couldn't remember why. Your sister, I said. Does she know everything? Her silence was answer enough. She saw us. Maybe. I don't know. Her voice cracked again. She asked if I wanted her to tell you something. I told her not to. What was it? Marian hesitated, then whispered. She likes you too. It hit like cold air, sudden, cutting. She told me, Marian said. She said you look at her the way you look at me. That's not true. Isn't it? She said, stepping closer now, too close. You're young. You don't even realize how much of yourself you give away when you look at someone like that. She was trembling again, but this time I could feel it, the heat of her body through the thin distance that barely separated us. I only look at you that way, I said. Her breath caught. Don't. I mean it. She stared at me, long, searching, torn between fear and something deeper. Then she whispered, You shouldn't. But she didn't move. When she brushed past me to reach the door, her shoulder lingered against mine. Slow, deliberate, electric. She stopped with her hand on the handle. If you come tomorrow, she said without turning around, don't knock. And before I could speak, she opened the door, stepped out into the wet night, and left me there, heartbeat still echoing where her touch had been. I told myself I wouldn't go back, that I'd let it end there, with her voice fading into rain and the wrench still warm in my hand. But the next morning, I was already walking down her street again. No tools this time, just the pull that wouldn't let go. The door was unlocked. She was in the kitchen, sitting at the table, coffee untouched, eyes unfocused. When she saw me, she didn't look surprised, just tired, like she'd been waiting for me to ignore her warning. "You came," she said. I didn't knock. A small, almost broken laugh. I remember. Silence. The kind that used to feel heavy now felt fragile, like a breath might shatter it. "I don't know what you want from me," she whispered. "I don't either," I said. "But I know I can't keep pretending it's nothing." She stood up slowly, every motion deliberate. "You think this will fix anything?" "No," I said. "But it's the truth." Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but instead she stepped closer. The distance shrank, her breath brushed my neck. I could feel the tremor in her voice before she spoke again. "You're going to hate me one day," she said. "Maybe," I said. "But not today." Her hand came up, cautious at first, fingers tracing the edge of my jaw, stopping when they reached the corner of my mouth. My pulse kicked hard. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she murmured. "How else am I supposed to look at you?" She exhaled sharply, the kind of sound that comes right before giving up on reason. Her forehead rested against mine, barely touching. The air was thick, warm, electric. Every sound, the clock ticking, the low hum of the fridge, her breath catching, felt amplified. "I told my sister I wouldn't see you again," she said. "Do you mean it?" Her silence was the answer. Then her hand slid to the back of my neck, a motion that wasn't supposed to happen but did. I could feel her heartbeat through her fingertips. "I don't want to be the mistake you regret," she whispered. "You're not," I said. "You're the reason I stayed." For a moment, we just breathed the same air, caught between wanting and knowing better. Her eyes searched mine, not for permission but for courage. Then she leaned in just enough for the edge of her breath to touch my lips. And stopped. Every muscle in her body froze, torn between surrender and restraint. "I can't," she said finally, the words trembling out. "Not like this. Not until I know it's real." "It is," I said. She closed her eyes, swallowed hard, and took a slow step back. "Then prove it. Leave." It felt like something splitting open. But I nodded. When I turned to go, she didn't follow. She just whispered, barely audible, "If it's real, you'll come back, not for me, but for yourself." And somehow I understood. This wasn't running away. It was the moment before everything changes. A week passed, long enough for things to settle, or maybe just long enough for me to pretend they had. I didn't plan to see her again, not really. But every time I walked past that house, the air felt different. Quieter, like something unfinished was still waiting there. The bike was still parked in the same spot. Clean now, no rust. Someone had cared for it. That was enough to make me stop. She came out before I could turn away. No makeup. Hair down. A sweater hanging loose at the sleeves. And that same look. Half calm, half something else. "I thought you weren't coming back," she said. "I wasn't. What changed?" I shrugged, trying to smile. "Guess I wanted to make sure the bike still ran." That earned me a real smile, small, warm, a little sad. "You always need an excuse." "Maybe," I said. "But I'm here." For a second, she didn't move. Then she stepped closer, folding her arms like she was holding herself together. "You scared me, you know." "How?" "You made me remember what it's like to want something again." There was no teasing in her tone this time. No distance either. Just honesty. The kind that makes your throat tighten because you know it costs something to say it. "I was scared too," I admitted. "Of saying the wrong thing. Of not being enough." Her eyes softened. "You never had to be enough. You just had to be real." We stood there, barely a breath apart. The wind moved through the yard, carrying that faint lavender scent again. It hit me how many times I'd noticed it. How many times I'd tried not to. She reached up, fingers brushing the side of my face, light as a question. "You think this is wrong?" "I used to," I said. "Now I think maybe it's just complicated." She nodded, a slow, knowing motion. "That's closer to the truth." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she stepped in, not fast, not nervous, just sure. Her hand slid into mine. No hesitation this time. "I don't want promises," she said quietly. "Just today." That's all I ever wanted. We stood like that, in the soft morning light, her head against my shoulder, my hand resting at the small of her back. No thunder, no storm this time, just stillness. The bike gleamed beside us, the engine fixed, silent now. Everything that needed mending had already happened elsewhere. When she finally looked up, I kissed her forehead, not a claim, not a confession. Just a moment that said I'm here. Her eyes closed, her body leaned closer, and for the first time, there was no tension left. Just warmth. She smiled against my chest. So what now? I laughed softly. Now we see if it still runs. And somehow, we both knew we weren't talking about the bike anymore. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?